listening to the Project Ignite podcast,
where real digital entrepreneurs reveal their very best tips, tools, and strategies to help you ignite and grow your online business.
ProjectIgnite.com. Your digital business starts here.
Now, here's your host, Gehl.
What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Project Ignite podcast, a podcast that is just going to skip all the hype, skip the BS, bring you real world digital entrepreneurs that are doing cool stuff, that are going to share strategies that you can take, actually use, and get a result with. This is your host, Gehl. And today we're going to be diving into one of my favorite topics. I don't know why it's always been like this odd obsession and passion of mine. And that is SEO, search engine optimization, search engine marketing, whatever you want to call it. And our guest today, is interesting character who has and I love these kind of guests. First of all, he has the biggest SEO agency in Australia, and I love when we get to talk to agency owners because they don't just work on a single business, they work across a broad spectrum of businesses. So it always gives them a bit of a bigger insight into what's going on in the industry, what's working. And now what's unique about this guy as well, though, is he started this business at 17. And here's the thing. He's only, that was only 5 years ago. And just before we started recording, I realized that I started learning SEO the year he was born. And so that made me feel old. But that being said, his agency, StudioHawk, is kicking ass down under and has gone on to win the Australian Business Award for Marketing and Innovation and a bunch of other cool stuff. He's on the board of the Australian web industry and a key player in a 2,000 member SEO meetup group. And recently just launched a training platform as well called the Hawk Academy to help anyone learn enterprise level SEO. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Harry Sanders to the show. Harry, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Derek.
All right. So you young'uns, man, it's hard to believe. I mean that the internet's been around for this long. Okay, here's a question for you.
Yeah, hit me.
Lycos.
Lycos? Nope.
Excite?
Nope.
Damn it.
Ultra Vista. Yeah.
Okay, Alta Vista. Okay, Alta Vista.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, seriously, when I started, Alta Vista, Excite, Lycos, and then Yahoo, and then Google kind of came along.
Yeah.
But those were the good old days. It was so easy, right? Just stuff
dead
keywords,
easy.
white text, white background.
100%, man. Glory days.
The glory days. Yeah, it was not. Yeah, I mean, you just use software, press a button, and you just get rankings. It was amazing. But yeah, that doesn't work like that anymore. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. But before we get into this, why don't you give me and our listeners a little bit of your background? Because I always love this. You know, I mean, you're 17. You started at 17, so now you're 22.
Yes. So
22, the ripe old age of.
That's it. When I was 13 is when I actually got into the industry, and I started by doing a bunch of affiliate websites.
Yep.
You know, I'd be on like Black Hat World back in the day. Big contributor there, just learning. And I started building out all these affiliates. And at 14, I got started at an agency. Off the back of some of these affiliates I'd built, a local company approached me. So I remember rocking up day one, Derek, literally like in a full suit and tie, you know, this 14-year-old kid in his baggy suit and tie, man. And yeah, they must have been crazy because they gave me a part-time job there, training their SEO team. And then
you were training their SEO team.
Yeah.
How much older were they than you?
Oh, man, we're talking easily 30, 40 years.
That's amazing.
But back then, it was the Wild West, man. Nobody knew
yeah.
what was happening in SEO. Keep in mind that this is when Penguin just happened.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the glory days of, you know, white text, white background, all these mass links. And then I was brought in right after all that went down with Penguin. So then I worked there for 2 years at another agency. And then, yeah, at 17, man, I literally just I had this moment. I think a lot of people work agency have this moment. They don't like what the agency's doing. For me, we were full service, we're doing everything for everyone, and we just weren't delivering great service. We're like double billing hours, all that kind of stuff. And so I was just like, bugger this. I am just going to do SEO. I'm not going to do any lock-in contracts or anything like that. I'm just going to do SEO. And so people told me I was stupid and it wouldn't work, but here we are 5 years later, 33 here in Oz and I think we've got 4 now in London, and it's just growing rapidly.
Wow. And yeah, so it said, I was reading it, you're over 300 clients now.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Now, do you have any offshore, but like any contractors and stuff that you're using in Philippines or anywhere like that as well?
Yeah, so we've also got some teams that do like hard outreach kind of stuff, but that's all facilitated back in the Australian team. So we've tried so many times to just get things done there, but it's just the consistency is not there. It's hard to build it up.
Yeah.
Whereas it's a lot easier to have Australian. Like our backlink team is primarily in Australia with supports in Philippines.
Right. Fast. Okay. So, all right. So you've got this agency now, and obviously you're kicking ass with it. That's interesting. You started, I mean, so many of the good SEO guys, when you ask them, where did they start? They're like, affiliate stuff, right? Back in the day. And I mean, it's a great way to cut your teeth. And honestly, when you start in the world of Black Hat as well, it really gives you the underbelly of SEO and you truly understand how stuff works, right? So, okay, so let's start sort of high level. I mean, if you were going to describe the state of SEO today, in 2021,
yeah,
what would it look like? And that's pretty broad, so I don't know where you're going.
Yeah, no, I like that. We'll take you through that journey. Yeah, you've got like back in those days where everything was white text, white backgrounds, like completely opposite of that now. I mean, there's I know some great Black Hat guys, but they're very few and far between now. As an agency, it's now Google's, say what you want about them, but they've done an incredible job about making it so that doing things the right way in their guidelines is 9 times out of 10 easier than doing it the deceptive way. So, I mean, the market talks, right? So a lot of, the state of SEO today is more about like fixing technical issues, getting all that stuff running smoothly, nice page speed, user experience. You're having good content that matches a search intent. So it's all about like data-driven content research now. And what are we going to put there that's going to place, like it's an entire project we're doing with HelloFresh is what can we kind of pick up on trends? And then lastly, it's higher quality backlinks. It's, these spun low tier kind of links just don't do it anymore. You've got to be having legitimate relationships. And the world of digital PR is now blending into SEO because, an SEO company would be doing digital PR to get some of these links. So SEO has evolved a crap ton, man. It's completely changed.
So, okay, so let's talk about this whole Black Hat versus white hat though, because the reality is okay. And I 110% agree with what you've said there. I mean, that old shit doesn't work anymore. You need to produce good quality content. You have to have good websites. You have to, do all of that stuff. But the fact, when it comes to link building, I mean, at the end of the day, we can't call that white hat per se, because at the end of the day, if you went by Google's recommended, Google says, don't actively build links, build it and they will come.
Yeah, and the content
right?
will come. Yeah.
And so I always laugh when we call ourselves white hat. I'm like, no. We're all in the gray area, in the greater scope.
Yeah.
Because we have to actively build links, right?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all there. I think there's two different, like, I've always looked at this, like, what Google says publicly is very different to what the algorithm looks at,
Exactly.
right? Like, they're two very different things. Like, white hat by algorithmic standards, like, we have never in 6 years had a algorithmic penalization nor a manual action, right? Never. And that in the last 6 years, I'm using that. That's when I've been working with clients. Before that, tons of them.
Yeah, it's every other week.
Yeah. But Google keeps saying you can't actively build links, but their algorithm says otherwise. And if you look at the SERPs, you don't need to go far to see that the guys ranking at the top have these great links. And the reality is, whatever these guys want to say, a lot of SEO practitioners, they love this idea of build content and you'll get links. Now, I'm telling you now, we work with a lot of great big brands. If I do a great content piece for HelloFresh or Officeworks is a big brand over here, they're going to get links, right? Happy days. However, if I go and do that for Jim's Plumbing, which is like a local company, man, Jim ain't getting crap. It ain't happening. And so the strategy changes and evolves, and it's different for small and enterprise companies. You can't give this wide sweeping advice of build content and you'll get links unless you are like some massive Goliath of a company.
Yeah, and that's where I think a lot of people get confused when they get into this, because they go, well, Google says don't build links. Well, you gotta, because you've got to start that momentum somewhere. But it's interesting because everybody, and I think it's human nature, people want to fixate on what's the one thing, right?
Yeah.
What's the secret?
The one thing that Google hates.
and there's no one thing. I mean, if you had to break down, okay, so let's look at the algorithm, and I understand they're probably looking now over 300-400 things or some obscure amount, but if you had to break it down into, here are the core things you need to focus on, what would they be?
Well, I always talk about this in that Hawk Academy stuff. I always break it down as the 3 pillars, right? If you know nothing else, you need to understand these 3 things, because everything sits under one of these categories. So if you have a problem with your site, you can kind of dig deeper as long as you know where to look, right? So again, coming back to that, it's like the technical SEO, page speed, structure, robots, sitemap, all the thing that Google needs to crawl your site. You could look at crawl budget and all those things. They're all technical pertaining to the website itself, right? Sure. It goes under that umbrella of things. Then you've got like search intent. So that's kind of like content as well. So that's where we talk about like creating educational content pieces or pieces for the blog that go online and match a specific search intent, right? And then lastly, you've got backlinks. So building up these quality backlinks.
Okay.
Let me know if you want me to do that again with the dog.
No, we're good. We're good. I mean, just for our listeners, everybody's at home right now. I mean, if it's not a kid, it's a dog. It's good. And I completely agree. It's funny when you said I teach it with 3 pillars. I have a SEO section, one of my platforms and courses, and I think I have a 4th pillar in there, but the 4th pillar really kind of falls into your 3rd pillar. And I call it engagement metrics, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so, okay, so with those 3 pillars, so you got your technical SEO, so your on-site optimization, page speed, all that good stuff, right? You've got your content. You have to have really good content and this is where I think engagement metrics really sit, right? Because if you've got good content, obviously your engagement metrics are going to be better. And then you have backlinks. Okay. So if I said, okay, you got these 3 areas, and we had to allocate a percentage, a weight of which one. I know.
This is awesome. You're going to do me dirty like this.
This is the worst question ever. How would you break that up?
Okay, that's a hard one. I would say, but here's the thing: like you can't have one without the others. If your site's not crawlable from a technical perspective, it doesn't matter how many links you have. Likewise, like if you have all these amazing links, but like no content or like anything matching it, it's not going to work. Like it just doesn't match up.
Yeah.
It's just impossible to kind of weigh them. Like they're all so different. It's interchangeable.
Yeah. Yes. Now, okay. That being said, would you give backlinks still sort of the crown?
Look, I'm always a little bit biased for my first love in life, which has been backlinks. They're the thing that move the needle the most. Exactly. If you put it this way, if you have already got good on-site, have already got good content, have already got some decent links, The biggest thing that's going to move the needle for you is going to be backlinks, like 60%. But if you don't have the basics down pat, then it's not really like having bad, like everything but backlinks is like putting, premium 98 in like a 95 Corolla. Like it's cool, but it's not really going to do anything extra for you.
Yeah. And the way I've always looked at it is, look, at the end of the day, good content, a well-optimized site, anybody could really pull that off without having to work that hard. It's the offsite that's the hardest part. And that's why from the very early days, that's what set Google apart from everybody, right?
100%. That was a game changer.
That was a game changer, PageRank. And now everybody's kind of followed that methodology. So let's dig into backlinks though, because I think this is probably, this is where everybody hits the wall, right?
Yeah.
You start out, and you're right. If you're a big brand, people are going to link to you. So you get somebody, they set up their website, it's well optimized, they've taken care of the technical side, they've got some great content on there, and crickets, nothing. Just like, it's a ghost town. Why? Because there's no links.
Yeah.
How do you teach people to get out there and start building links?
I think the best way of teaching people is showing them, like what we do in Hawk Academy is like literally break it down. And I think the coolest thing we do, because there's a skyscraper technique, there's a moving man technique, there's digital PR, there's like press call outs. There's so many link building techniques nowadays. It's like, pick your choice of poison. What's interesting, however, is the time it takes. People often look at like, I've got a favorite technique, but a favorite technique's useless if the timing's not right. Does that make sense? Like
go a little deeper there. When you say timing, what do you mean?
So going through, like in the Hawk Academy, we talk about all this data. So we do a bunch of link acquisition for each different technique, and we talk about the average time per acquisition of link. That's really the metric you're looking at with anything you do, average time per link. So if you can get that down to like half an hour, then that's great, because you're getting these quality links every half an hour. Because the most daunting thing about link building for most people is they'll sit down for 20 hours and not get a link, right?
Yep.
And then they might get 5 links at once, or they might get 10 links at once. But having that metric, it's almost like, a cold call stat. It's like knowing that if you call 100 people, you're going to get 4 sales. I don't do cold calling, so I don't really understand the science behind that. But it's a similar thing, knowing that every half an hour I spend doing this technique, I'm going to expect a link. And so when you work with a team, you work with contractors, all these things, you have these metrics in mind because you've already run the numbers on tens of thousands of these already. And so that's really cool to have that breakdown of, skyscraper is going to be best if you're a big brand. You're going to get the best bang for buck in terms of time spent. Moving Man's going to be great if you've got a competitor that rebranded. If you're a small business, reporter call outs are going to be the best bang for buck, though they're finite. Having this breakdown and knowing on the back of your mind instantly which technique's going to work for who is really valuable.
Okay. So, and we've got these different techniques. When you're working with somebody, how do you structure a link profile? Because you don't want too much of one thing.
Yeah, I like that. We try and diversify it as much as possible. Like we diversify both. We like anchors, we can make completely diversified, and often we don't even have control over them anyway, which I don't think is a bad thing. But we do naked, branded, very few keyword these days, just a very wide spread. I don't believe in just one thing. I think you have to spread it across and make it as dynamic as possible, right? And then in terms of the other stuff, I always look at, backlink placement is like, okay, the niche you always want it to be as close to their niche as possible, right? That's non-negotiable. Then I go, okay, 80-20 do follow, no follow is ideal. Doesn't really matter if it's skewed one way or the other. And then in terms of the quality of the links, I like to mix it with like a mixture of medium and high tiers, maybe some digital PR, maybe some lows, depending on the size of the brand. If it's a small business, you can get away with lows and mids. If it's a mid kind of size business, mids and highs. And if they're a big brand, then you're doing digital PRs and highs.
Okay, so we're going into some tech terms here. I just want to stop when you say
sorry.
No, it's good. I mean, I love it, and it's a good education. So PRs. When you say PR, you mean?
We're talking like Forbes and stuff, those kind of dudes, big, heavy hitting links that pass through a lot of that like kind of engagement or authority.
Right.
We can look at people go off DR or AS, which are SEMrush metrics for how credible a domain is. Your lows would be like 30 to 50, your mids maybe 50 to 70, like your highs 70 to kind of 80, 90, and then plus that is like your digital PR level of links.
Gotcha. Okay. And so when you pull your metrics, just out of curiosity, I know you use SEMrush, which I love. When you're looking at link quality, who do you prefer as far as, Majestic versus SEMrush, as far as determining? I mean, I always look at trust flow, but
Yeah. I like that. No, I personally, I like looking at SEMrush and Ahrefs. I feel like have the largest kind of index and understanding of niche and everything. And so I kind of play them off against each other. I do look at Majestic occasionally when I've got some kind of real discrepancy between SEMrush and Ahrefs, which is occasional. But other than that, I used to have like 6 tools, and I wrote this Python algorithm to like averages them out. And I thought I'd come up with some genius thing. I feel like every SEO does that at least once in their life. They overcomplicate, they rebuild the wheel. And I looked at it, I was like, literally looking at Ahrefs and SEMrush gives me better results than this Python thing that I spent a month building out. And so I had to retire that, and it was very upsetting.
Oh, well, you know what? I'd rather just look at someone else's dashboard and let them maintain it anyway. Okay. So you're talking, and I like how you break down, a time to build a link, right? And the effectiveness of that, because you can apply a value to your time, which means you can apply a value to the link if you're calculating time into that. So based on where the things you teach today and the stuff that you're doing, what do you find to be the fastest link building methodology?
It changes based on the business. Like if you're a name brand business, Skyscraper will crush it for you. You will decimate everyone, because if I go out and I'm doing link outreach for New Balance, which I do, I go out to a brand and I say, I'm with New Balance, boom, I get a link, no worries. If I go to, Derek'sRunningshoes.com, people don't love it. They don't know that brand. So you get a lower time per link. Or a higher time per link, rather, which is frustrating because again, I can't give, if I say, hey, the Skyscraper technique's the best, well, it's the best for some, but not the best for all. Whereas press call out for smaller businesses, for Derek's Running Shoes, is gonna smash it, right? Whereas I have to do press call out for New Balance, I'm getting few and far between links. I'm not getting any quality, right? So it really depends. And the moving man's really great if someone rebrands, but if there's no one in the market rebranding or going out of business, then that technique's pretty much done and dead, right?
Yeah.
So it really is finding out which is going to work best. Like again, and maybe you have a really interesting story. Maybe Derek's Running Shoes is like giving 90% of their profits to charity or something crazy. And that's a great story that digital PR can run. Or maybe they're not, and maybe they're just a boring shoe company and you can't run anything. So it's really, as you can kind of see, quite spread through what's a good tactic for who.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I get that. It is different. Now let's talk about the gray side. Some might call black.
Love the gray.
Link acquisition. Buying links. How do you feel about that?
Look, I'm in two minds about it. A lot of people want money for publishing content, right? And that's normal. And that generally includes a link, let's be honest. However, the mind that I don't like about it is link marketplaces. Now, they are generally asking for trouble. Guys like the Hoth and that stuff, like, they've basically just got a bunch of kind of low tier links that they've slapped on there that they have mass amounts of people purchasing and buying. So eventually, naturally, all these sites just become SEO farms. And so that's not really useful to anyone. Like that's going to land you in hot water. And that's what guys like, SEMrush did for a thing, temporarily. They did this link marketplace kind of thing. And that landed them in strife, obviously. But those kind of marketplaces, I don't see as being good bang for buck, maybe in the short term, but in the long term, I've tried them on a lot of affiliates that I run now, and they've just not been as successful as doing that outreach and getting that myself.
Right. And now, I mean, we went through a period there. I mean, PBNs are still alive and well, but there was a period, I think, when PBMs, they were picking up the footprints and shutting them down pretty quickly. I haven't necessarily heard of that as much anymore. Are we just getting better at building PBNs?
It's a good question. Well, I was in Portugal with Brian Dean and Craig and a few of them literally last year talking about this exact thing. I think Matt Cutts, when he was around like a few years back, he was Gustavo, man. That guy, you would mention that name at an SEO conference and people would tremble in fear. And that was really it. And no disrespect to John Mueller, but he just doesn't have that same name for himself. John Mueller often says a lot of things that don't come to fruition. And so in the SEO community, it doesn't have that same fear. When Matt Cutts @ your Twitter handle and says, I'm looking at your link profile, you crap your pants. Like, that's it. That's done. Burn that PBN, go next.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like, I think that Google's very good, probably better than ever at detecting PBNs and shutting them down. I know some friends that still swear by them, but honestly, truthfully, I think they spend more time building out these PBNs than they would if they migrated to a more traditional kind of outreach strategy. Building them, maintaining them these days is really incredibly difficult. And you would never put them on a client site now. They're just too versatile. Yeah. Even on your own affiliates, like I've done 2 affiliates recently, one with PBN links, one without, and the one without performed better. And it took me like 3/4 of the time. So just from a time efficiency thing, I'm pretty willing to say that PBNs are not what they, definitely not what they used to be, but are really out of style now.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. I mean, now, how do you feel about purchasing links on, big media sites and stuff like that? Because
that's life. Yeah, that's people that say, if I go to Forbes or I go to something like that, they're generally going to charge me a cost to run an article or a link or something. That is their way of making money. So I think that's perfectly fine. If you look into it, you'll see that Google's done the same so many times in sponsored posts that weren't marked as sponsored. And so they've been caught with their pants down. So, and I've never, ever seen anyone get hurt for doing something like that. Like, it just doesn't happen. The only time I see people get hurt, like in Vato and stuff, is when they do a bunch of spammy link building.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Affiliate links. Now, this is actually a question I have, because one of my businesses, I have a big affiliate network. And are you guys seeing authority passing, link juice passing through affiliate links these days? Or does it get filtered? And when I say affiliate links, I'm not talking about running through like a third-party network, like, you're on CJ or something like that. So it's going through your hop links and stuff. But like, if you have an affiliate linking to you through a / whatever ! their ID, is that passing?
I absolutely think it does. I mean, I will reach out to affiliate websites and broker deals for my own affiliate. It's like affiliate to affiliate. And I get link equity out of that, because affiliate content generally is no different from good content, right? It's one and the same. So the only difference in affiliate content and not affiliate content is obviously they're passing on or getting some money for referring out or closing a deal or something. But underlying, I mean, that's what every business is doing. If you think about it, like if I go to Jim's Plumbing, they are effectively getting money for the leads coming in. Right. So we just farm those leads out to someone else, or we might get a kickback on a product. But whatever the case is, those affiliate links are certainly still passing authority for me. I would say in some cases, because of how niche relevant they are, even more so.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And you're going to have a lot of relevancy in there. Typically, if somebody's trying to refer a product, it's going to be coming from somewhere relevant. Correct. So, okay. So talk about social signals for a second. I mean, there's always been, how much value do they add? And Honestly, I haven't ever seen anything that's told me that, wow, this makes a difference. Whether it be
Glad you said that.
Facebook
I'm
or
glad you said
Twitter or whatever,
that.
but am I wrong?
Yeah. No, I've been on a lot of podcasts where like, or a lot of people are like sworn by social signals and engagement metrics. Now, I will tell you that used to be true. They used to be a massive thing. When Google Plus came out,
Yeah.
we did some tests back in the day and you just manipulate the crap out of that thing to rank, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Nowadays, Google doesn't want to look at social signals because it's out of their ecosystem. Anyone can buy Facebook likes, anyone can buy
Hmm.
engagement on their Twitter stuff. And if Google looks at that, then it's just going to skew their algorithm. Google's very conservative. Google is probably the most conservative person you will ever meet in your life. If it's outside the Google ecosystem, they don't really want to touch it.
Hmm.
So because they don't have Google Plus now, they're relying on Facebook and Twitter. And Google and Facebook aren't exactly besties, nor are they besties with Twitter. And they don't want to be looking and relying on their data. So those social signals really is just like an underlying, I would call it more of an EAT thing. Like if they're an expert figure and we're going to show them in our search results, we would expect them to have a Twitter with some semblance of a following and a Facebook with some semblance of a following. But whether you have 1,000 followers or 1,000,000 followers, do I think that makes a difference to your social signals? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Honestly, I think they shut down Google Plus because in the end, the only people using it were SEOs.
Yes, I 100% agree.
Just trying to get some cred from it. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
yeah, totally. All right. Okay, so last thing I want to dive into here is local versus global, or
Mm.
however you want, or national, or wherever a broader market
Yeah.
happens to be, right? I think there's a lot of confusion when people go down this road, right? You've got Jim's Plumbing in Melbourne who's
Mm.
servicing his neighborhood or market versus, the international plumbing store. What what
Mm.
is the what is the difference in strategy?
So the difference in strategy is Jim's Plumbing can center his whole website around his service area, right? And go, well, we service these areas, this is what we do. They don't need to create location pages per se for everything because their whole website is effectively a location page. Same with their Google My Business stuff, right? They just need to create like a service area and build up some reviews to one location. And that's great. That's a lot easier for someone like Jim to do that. Whereas if I've got Big Derek comes along, he walks in and he's got some global conglomerate plumbing company. He's going to need a location page for all the places that he's trying to service, the major cities, the major suburbs, all that kind of stuff. And he's going to have to think long and hard about how he does that because that's challenging. Then he's going to need to create all these GMB locations for all the services he does. And that's going to be hard and challenging because he's going to need reviews for each of those as well. And so at a national or a global scale, it's just a lot more resources and a lot more time compared to a small business.
So, okay, now let's take rather than a business that services multiple geographic areas, let's take an affiliate site, right? Let's say I've got a dog site and I want to rank it for how to train your dog, right?
Yep.
And I don't care where they are in the world.
Hmm.
So how does that differ from what we're talking about?
Well, if you're going for local searches, generally you're going to have more local based content. You're going to be talking about, how to train your dog, and you're going to be mentioning local parks and different local areas. Whereas something like a global thing, well, you're not. You're going to be keeping it as general as possible.
Mhm.
If you're on the global level, your articles have to be like 10 notches above that what they otherwise would be. You can't hope to compare without a heap of backlinks and a heap of authority behind you. Whereas local, you can maybe slip in the market without having heaps of that to start. So that would be a major difference there. It's a lot easier to rank locally than globally for a lot of these terms.
Okay, I got to ask this question because this is the question I
Yeah.
get from so many of my Aussie students all the time. If I have a .com.au domain, can I rank in the US?
Yes, you can rank in the US, but from a user experience perspective, it's annoying. But
Thank you.
but
Thank
you
you.
can
Yes.
certainly rank. But if I'm a American person, I land on your website. First thing I'm thinking is, do they ship to America?
Mhm.
Like it's easy to have a .com.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. All right, man. I could go on forever. I love talking about this stuff, and I can totally nerd out on SEO stuff. But we do need to wrap this up. So before we go, though, where can people connect with you, find out more about what you're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. I'm generally best on LinkedIn, to be honest.
Mhm.
You can find me there as Harry Sanders SEO. Same on Twitter if you're one of those Twitter people. I know a lot of SEOs love their Twitter.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you want to see any of these studies, or we've got like all these free run-throughs of digital PR and stuff, head over to Hawk Academy and learn some of that stuff. We run you through end to end those different link building techniques. Or otherwise, StudioHawk, the agency side of things, that is where we do our bread and butter. We're opening in the US soon, so
Oh, good for you. Right
come
on.
say the hi to you. That'll be over the next year or so, so it won't be for a while. But
Yeah.
otherwise, UK, Australia is really our main markets there.
Yeah, good for you, man. That's awesome. All right. Well, on that note, again, thank you for taking the time and nerding out on SEO stuff with me and going deep into it. And I mean,
Thank you.
I like the your stuff, which is awesome because
Oh, I always love a good SEO, no doubt.
yeah, as do I. So thanks again, and yeah, hopefully we can do this again and catch up in a year from now.
Looking forward to it. Chat soon, man.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And everybody, for any links that were mentioned, as always, you'll find us at projectignite.com in the show notes. And look, we talked about a lot of stuff here and a lot of really like, here's how you do it. Here's what's working stuff in the world of SEO. And I can honestly say, if I look across all my businesses, traffic streams, my supplements business this year, we did over $18 million in sales. And if I look at my most profitable channels, SEO is always my highest ROI. They convert the best. It's the highest profit. And why? Because of the intent, the quality, the people that are searching there. It takes time, but it's well worth it. So on that note, folks, this is a wrap. If you like what you heard, leave me a rating, leave me a review on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to another info-packed episode of the Project Ignite podcast with Derek Gehl.
Any links mentioned, along with an entire transcript of this episode, can be found at projectignite.com/podcast.
And to make sure you never miss another episode, go to iTunes or SoundCloud now and subscribe.